The Giants are the worst team in the NFL. It's not exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. The Giants are the worst team in the NFL. And that doesn't mean, the Giants have not won a game yet so far this year. There are a few teams that have not yet won a game. The Jaguars, I know, a great organization, great company, by the way, the Jets. But the Giants over the past half decade have been the least successful team in the NFL, rivaled only by their other locker room, the New York Jets. If we look at the fewest NFL wins since 2017, I actually have to move my face cam because the Giants aren't even pictured. They have so few wins, 18, tied with the Jets since 2017. And why is 2017 a relevant window? Well, 2016 was the last time the Giants even made the playoffs, and it wasn't like it was even smooth sailing prior to that. Yes, I recognize that the Giants won Super Bowls in 2007 and 2011, and many fan bases would gladly trade just one of those Super Bowls for all this losing. Gladly. I understand that. However, being one of the worst teams in the NFL isn't exactly a great spot to be. And being one of the worst teams in the NFL for the past half decade is growing tiresome, especially, and it's going to sound however it sounds, right? But there is an expectation when you're in a major market like New York, and I know the Giants and Jets play in East Rutherford, New Jersey, but it's the New York sports market, and there is an expectation there of success because of the size of the market. And based on that, the Giants have been even worse than their record would indicate, because should you be more successful than a Cincinnati or a Jacksonville or a Detroit, right? And not that some of those aren't great sports towns, right? But they're not exactly major markets. And I think that does have something to do with the disappointment. And you know what? It would be a legitimate upgrade right now to be a Bengals fan. Maybe I should just fully embrace my channel name and switch teams. Maybe I'll be a Bengals fan. And before everyone comes in, be like, oh, fake fan, I know that's going to fly over 60% of your heads. I'm joking. I'm not being serious. But it's still less of a joke than the Giants organization. It's still more serious than the Giants are of being playoff contenders. The Giants are an absolute disgrace. And yeah, it starts at the top with Mara and it works down. Dave Gettleman has been absolutely horrific as the Giants general manager. There are examples of him drafting at least better than Jerry Reese did at the end of his reign as the former Giants general manager. There are so many Giants, even in the early Dave Gettleman draft classes now, that are just no longer on the team because they washed out. And it's not just, mid to late round picks. That's going to happen all the time. But there are top picks that are just not on the team anymore. If you go back to Dave Gettleman's first draft, let's go ahead and look at this. So the reason we talk about that 2017 window is Dave Gettleman would take over just a year after in 2018. And I get that you can't turn around an organization in just a year or two, but at this point you should be showing success. And let's look at the 2018 draft, Dave Gettleman's first draft. Took Saquon Barclay at number 2. I think there's no questioning the talent that Saquon has as an athlete, as a player. He doesn't exactly have the most vision as a runner, and I think that does hurt the Giants at times. Their offensive line can actually set up the blocking scheme correctly and not have any results to show for it, but Saquon will, turn nothing into a 60-yard run at times. And an injury in 2020, these things happen. What are you going to do? But taking a running back at number 2 is just not a good idea in the current landscape of the NFL. In 1980, it's a great pick probably. In 2020 or 2018, right? It's not a great pick because running back you can find all over the draft and you can find great value, and the lifespan of running backs in the league is so limited. And if you look at production from backs, well outside the first round, even undrafted, if you look at James Robinson, I get that those guys are few and far between. There's no real reason to take running back at 2. As much as I love Saquon as a player, I mean, it's pretty obvious he's super exciting at his best, right? There isn't a value to taking that position at number 2. There just isn't. Will Hernandez barely plays now. Lorenzo Carter hasn't really ever developed. He's an okay starter. BJ Hill doesn't really play a whole lot. Kyle Lauletta off the team. RJ McIntosh has not played in the NFL since 2019. 2019 now. They took Daniel Jones at number 6 overall, and I was very unhappy with this selection at the time, and I think that remains true because there are some good things you can say about Daniel Jones, right? He's a good thrower of the football at times. Daniel Jones will surprise you with his accuracy down the field. However, there are certain things he does at QB, or maybe doesn't do, that he probably will never improve upon, that will limit him from really ever being a super successful quarterback in the league. Maybe 5-10 years down the line, he's going to be a decent starter somewhere, like maybe the way Alex Smith was with the Chiefs for a while, right? But Daniel Jones has the complete inability of sensing pressure at all. His ball security has always been poor, and it's something that he does consistently, which frustrates the hell out of me, is he will lock onto his primary read and throw the ball pretty much no matter what. And that's something that should be fixable. You should be able to teach a quarterback to get off his first read, go through his progressions. Doesn't do it. He locks on and throws the ball no matter what. And it leads to some really, really risky throws and some turnover-worthy plays, even if there's no turnover on the play. Again, no internal clock, doesn't sense pressure, and that leads to getting sacked and fumbling the football and losing possession, which turns into a points for the opposing team. Dexter Lawrence, I think, is a really good player. He's evolved to being more than just a nose tackle, which you don't take a nose tackle generally at 17 unless they're going to be unbelievable. He's been a good player. I think the only nose tackle worth taking near that high is a player like Vita Vea, who we've seen is just an unbelievable player for that Tampa defense. However, Dexter Lawrence doesn't really play the same role that Vita Vea does, even though they're in similar 3-4 fronts. Lawrence doesn't take over the game the way that a Vita Vea does. It's a decent pick, but it's not exceptional value at 17. Deandre Baker, off the field issues, was off the Giants in 2 years and was terrible, by the way, when he was on the Giants. O'Shane Ximines hasn't evolved to anything. Julian Love is a backup. Ryan Connolly's not on the team. Darius Slayton was a good pick in the 5th round. He's been a great player. The rest of the picks are irrelevant. Corey Ballantyne, I know, is not on the team. George Asafo-Adjei has never played in the NFL. And Chris Slayton has also never played in the NFL. Going to 2020 now, just a year ago, so you don't really expect players to take a huge jump at this point in time. But Andrew Thomas, for being the number 4 overall pick, has been a tremendous disappointment. He's been very, very, very bad. There's just no way around that. He's flashed in some ways, yes. But overall, he's been pretty horrible. Xavier McKinney faced injuries. I have high hopes for him still. I loved him at Alabama. I think he can be a good player. So I can't hate on that one. Matt Pert hasn't really done much. Not that you really expected him to. I think there's some potential there, but it hasn't really developed. Is on the bench behind Nate Solder, who might be the worst starting tackle in the league. Darnay Holmes is an all right player, maybe even better than all right, at least for a 4th rounder. He's done quite well, I would say. Shane Lemieux, decent value maybe for the 5th round, isn't anything special. And then every other player in this draft class is fairly irrelevant at this point. And then 2021, right? I like Kadarius Toney as a player. He definitely has room to improve, for sure. He's starting to get targeted a little bit more. But the Giants took a player in Kadarius Toney, even though I like him as a player. He's a player that needs to be schemed the football. And in a Jason Garrett offense, and that's the offensive coordinator of the Giants, who is extremely, or just lacks any type of creativity whatsoever, he doesn't know how to use a player like Kadarius Toney. Where Toney might be the best player on the Chiefs, if he was on that team in the way that an offense would creatively use him, and I get that they have Travis Kelce, I get that they have Tyreek Hill, that's a little bit of hyperbole, right? But they are a team that would know how to effectively use a player of his skill set. You'd line him up out of the backfield at times. You'd play him in the slot. You'd play him out wide. You'd use him as a distraction. You'd throw him screens. You'd get him the football. The Giants don't even have him on the field. Azeez Ojulari has played quite well so far. Does have 3 sacks, which people are going to point to. I think 2 of those at least have been coverage sacks, which is saying something about the back end of the team. But I think Azeez Ojulari is going to be quite good. And then Aaron Robinson and Ellerson Smith have played no impact so far because they have been injured or haven't made the field. Aaron Robinson, I know, has been injured. Ellerson Smith, we'll have to see. So Ellerson Smith is on IR. Aaron Robinson's on the physically unable to perform list. had an abdomen surgery. There's nothing you can really do about that, but that's just the most recent draft class. I figured we'd at least show it. But my point remains the same, is Dave Gettleman, despite having very high picks, let's look at this. So top 50, that's 2 in 2021. In 2020, that's, again, 2. And those are 2 top 40 picks, including 1 in the top 5. 2018, we have 4 top 69 picks, including 2 in the top 34, number 2 overall. And then in 2019, you had 3 top 30 picks, including 2 in the top 17. You've had high picks, and you haven't capitalized on them at all. And if you look at the Giants team, right, there's nothing they can do about a difficult schedule coming up. You lost to a Broncos team by a lot that just isn't a particularly great team. I get that they're 3-0 right now, and all you can do is beat the teams in front of you, but the reality is they've beaten nobody. The Giants, Jaguars, and Jets. Teams that haven't won a game so far. And I get that there's nothing the Broncos can do about that, but my idea remains the same, is that this Broncos team isn't as good as a typical 3-0 team might be. So they lost by a lot to a Broncos team that I think is worse than their record would indicate. They lost by 1 to a Washington team who I think at the very least has underperformed expectations. They lost to the Chargers, who are a decent team, and then they lost to the Bills by a lot. The Bills are just way better. And then the Giants lost to a Falcons team that got blown out by the Eagles, who are bad, got blown out by the Bucs, who are quite good, and then this Falcons team narrowly beat the Giants. This Falcons defense couldn't stop anybody, held the Giants to 14. The Falcons offense didn't even look like they wanted to participate in the game, and still won. It's unbelievable. And next up on the Giants schedule, you have the Saints, you have the Cowboys, the Rams, the undefeated Panthers, the team that was in the Super Bowl, as far back as last year and won it the year before, in the Kansas City Chiefs. You have the Raiders, who are off to a hot start. You have the Super Bowl champion Bucs. And then you have a division rival. The Eagles always play the Giants really well, as I'm sure you'll know. Dolphins, Chargers, Cowboys, Eagles again. The Bears, who are bad. And then Washington football team again. When you really look at this Giants schedule, they're going to win more than you'd expect, probably, because you might look over their next stretch and say, they're going to go 0-10. It's probably not going to be quite so bad. I think maybe they could end up beating a team like the Panthers or the Raiders or the Cowboys even, just because divisional games are always close. But are all of these teams better than the Giants? Yeah. Who's the first team that's maybe close to the Giants level? The Eagles, maybe? Is it the Eagles? And then after that, I think the Dolphins are a better team than the Giants. The Giants might beat them, but I think the Dolphins are top to bottom a better team, even with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. I think the Chargers are better. I think the Cowboys are better. I think the Eagles, again, are on a similar level. And then the Bears' defense is great. Their offense is really bad. So we'll have to see what happens in that game. And then Washington football team, which I think is a better team than the Giants. The Giants are bad. I mean, that's the point of the video. It's not a surprise. Everyone knows this. It's just a complete and utter disgrace how horrific the Giants have been, that you go back as far as 2017, and the Giants have the fewest wins of anyone in the NFL, apart from the Jets, who are equally bad. And we could make a whole separate video talking about the Jets. But it's not even, close, right? It's a significant upgrade to the Bengals, who have the, I guess, second fewest wins. I mean, would it count as third? I guess it would count as third, right? But, the second lowest number there, tied with the Jaguars. It's a big jump. You look at the top, Cowboys, Chargers, Bears, which is, first, that's an interesting group, by the way. That's probably not who you'd expect. And it's not who you'd expect because it doesn't include a lot of these teams here, like the Saints, Chiefs, Ravens, Rams, Patriots. Be nice to show it on the graph, but you guys can see it here. 51, 49, 46, 46, 44 wins. The Giants have more than half, or I guess less than half, of the wins that even, let's see here, that the Eagles have. 18 and 18 is 36. Am I right about that? Sure am. I'm a math whiz. But yeah, and that's the Eagles. That's a division opponent that you got to be more competitive with, and they're just not. but it's a significant upgrade to even 22. That's 4 wins. That's what the Giants have done in a season multiple times over the past few years. Of course, the Giants have started out 0-3 in 2021. It's been bad, but they went 6-10 last year, and they played in a really, really bad division with an easy schedule. Still only won 6 games. Won 4 in 2019. In 2018, they won 5. In 2017, the Giants won even less than that, 3. It's been a disgrace. And what can you even say about Joe Judge? I don't even know how to feel about him, right? Because sometimes he'll be like, he'll say something that impresses you, and it'll make you believe in the team maybe for a split second. And then he comes out and says about analytics, which are extremely important to the game. I think there should be a very good mix between, classic football thinking and new age analytics, which are the way, realistically, of successful teams. He says it's nice to look at the numbers and how they go through the flow of the game, but the analytics change based on the opponent, based on who you have available for the game, and how the flow of the game's going too. I don't disagree with that. But he says you can look at a stat sheet all you want. I promise you, if Excel was going to win football games, Bill Gates would be killing it right now. That's hilarious. You got to take those numbers as a tool, and then you've got to go in and factor how your team is playing at the time and what the opponent has as well. You've got to measure your strengths and weaknesses against the opponent every time, and also in terms of the flow of the game. There's value to that, but it sounds like just dismissing analytics pretty much, which are I think a big part of successful teams in 2021, and even for the past several years, right? To just be like, it's whatever. I think that's. Who cares how he answers a question, really, but it's the idea. It's the way of thinking. The Giants really are living in the past with everything, whether it's dismissing analytics or taking a running back at number 2 overall. The Giants are living in the past. That's really what it is. You want success? Go to the past. You want ways of thinking? They're in the past. And I want this team to be successful not only in the present, but in the future. And whether Joe Judge is the coach of a successful New York Giants football team, I'm very much skeptical. But I don't think anything really changes until John Mara gets rid of Dave Gettleman, who has just shown an inability to do what he said he was going to do, which is turn this team around. And even though the idea of building through the trenches has been constantly preached, it hasn't happened. The Giants have had one of the worst offensive lines since he got into power, we'll call it. And the Giants still, in 2021, have arguably the worst offensive line in football. That's the reality. There are teams that are very close to as bad as the Giants, or maybe even slightly worse in some cases. I think recency bias would point to the Bears O-line being really, really bad. The Giants O-line is terrible. They cannot run the ball. They cannot pass the ball. And a lot of that starts in the trenches, starts with these so-called hog mollies, and they haven't been successful. And I think a huge, huge part of that is, the person assembling the team, Dave Gettleman. So until the Giants can bring in a new regime that can hopefully lead this team back to the promised land, I have continually no hope. I know the Giants have fooled some of you, big Giants fans who want to believe in this terrible team year in and year out. I'm a Giants fan. And guess what? They haven't fooled me. I'm a realist, and I've taken it for what it is. And I've been ripped apart by casual Giants fans that say, hey, you're an idiot. All you do is hate on the team. You know why I hate on the team? Because the Giants have the fewest wins of any team with the Jets since 2017. Why would I continually think that this team can turn it around despite not showing any indication of even being close to doing so? So that's going to do it for the video. I don't really have anything positive to say because there's nothing positive to say. The only real positive could be changing this regime, bringing in a new general manager. I think probably bringing in a new head coach, bringing in coordinators who are competent. You know what? Scratch that. Patrick Graham is a very competent coordinator. He's an excellent defensive coordinator, and he's probably going to get a head coaching job somewhere, whether it's with the Giants or somewhere else. I don't know. And best of luck to him. I hope he gets out of this dumpster fire that is this Giants organization. Thanks for watching. And, I hate this team a lot.
Insane, I hit it at the park, bend bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game, Nintendo. Playing with the best, let them know. Get off the track, the train's coming through. Yeah, promise you get in my way, then you best believe I'ma just run over you. Yeah, yeah. Papa turn taking it back to the house. Defense a joke, I'm laughing so loud. Speedbird's good.